Third line from the top. Vayachalom v'nei sulam musav artzav rosh Hashem. There's he dreams this ladder with the feet are on the ground and the head is in the heavens. V'nei malachi elokim oliv yordim bo. So yesterday we spoke about the ladder being the ladder of which represents spiritual growth. That a person is meant to be climbing the ladder one rung at a time. If you jump too many rungs, you know, in the cartoons when a guy would climb up the ladder and he would fall and he bangs his head on every rung on the way down, which is what happens when people try to jump to, ba-boing, ba-boing. People try to jump too far, too fast, and that's not good. You go up one step at a time, but you go up. Okay, now, what the commentaries say over here is that a person, Malachi Elohim, the angels are going up and they're coming down. That means a human being could surpass the angels, and ultimately we do. Ultimately we do, because the angels do not have free choice, certainly not as we understand it. We are on a higher level, human beings are on a higher level than angels because we're put into this world to be tested with our free choice. And there's a source in the Gemara that says in the future world, the angels are going to ask the human beings, Ma pa al kel, what's God doing in there? I mean, in the world to come, we're going to be so close, the angels are going to be outside of us, they're going to be asking us what's going on in the inner circle. So that's the human being. We don't feel it now because we're trapped in a physical body. But those are the facts. The facts are that we're on a higher level, and that's why we've been selected for the test. Our neshama is on a higher level than even the angels. In the process of spiritual growth, I don't like to use the word spiritual. It sounds a little too spiritual. So in the process of the growth in ruchnius, as a person climbs the ladder, you could even surpass the angels. The angels start out above you. Olim v'yordimbo, they're up, they're going up, and then yordim, they're coming down because you're going up. You're actually surpassing the angels, number one. Number two, and this is what we'll leave the angels out of it for a few minutes. What does apply to us immediately is that a person has to realize that in the process of his growth in ruchnius, as a person tries to grow as being a Jew, you're going to have days of aliyah, days that you're going up, and days that you have a yerida where you feel that you're spiraling downward, sometimes very, very rapidly. So a person has to know how to deal with those two phenomena. Sometimes a person feels there's certain days where you're learning well and everything's going well and you feel good, and you just feel like you're jumping up on a table and shaking your hand and saying, "Yeah, I'm from." Yeah, you feel like you're part of the team. There are other days where you're on a way down and it's just not connecting, and you're wondering. You see the gates of Gehenna open up under you, and the angels with pitchforks and so on and so forth, and you're wondering, why am I doing any of this? It's old Aramaic anyway. And that's natural, that's normal. Everybody has those types of days. Everybody at every level has those types of days. Even the biggest, holiest rabbis have those types of days. Even I have those types of days sometimes. So that was a joke, by the way. Everybody has their days of aliyah and their days of yerida. Everybody has the days that they're connecting and the days where they're going down. That's the first thing the ladder tells you. That you have to realize that's all part of the process. It's a process of 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, and the person, when they're on the way down, they just have to try to tread water. Just try to maintain your level on the way down. Don't do anything other than try to survive and wait for the good days when you could then break through and push up higher to new levels. That's the idea. The other thing is that the yeridas there's a purpose for a yerida. When a person has a down day, one of the purposes, why does God do this? So remember we spoke about the concept in the Musar works, there's the concepts of Yemei Ava and Yemei Sina. They're what's called days of hatred and days of love. That's a Musar concept brought down in the classic Musar Sfarim. And what that means is, remember we talked about how how does a child learn to walk? Child's 1.5 years old and the parents hold his hand and he takes a few steps and everything's going well. Then the father lets go, child takes a step or two and he falls flat on his face. And everybody goes, "Yay!" Yeah, everybody in the room claps because he fell. So then the child gets there, he doesn't know what happened. Now, when did he make more progress? When the father was holding his hands, or when he took those 2 steps? He took the 2 steps. The father let go. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu sometimes says to us, "Listen, you're great when I'm holding your hand. You're great when I'm holding your hand. You're doing well. What did we call it yesterday? The pipe is open. There was a word we used for it. The energy is coming in clear. Remember we talked about Neshama Yisera. the flow. That's what the flow is strong. We feel the connection. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes, okay, now let's see you do it on your own a little bit. But he's doing that because number one, you've earned the privilege of trying to grow a little bit more, and you feel lousy. Now let's see you do it on your own a little bit. Anybody could do it when they feel like doing it. Let's see you do it when you don't feel like doing it. And that's when you grow. That's when you go. You grow more on the days when things aren't going well than things are going well. I had a Rebbe who said to us, I had a Rebbe when I was in yeshiva, he used to say to us, anybody could learn when they feel like learning. Then it's fun. The trick is to learn when you don't feel like learning. Trick is to learn when you got a headache, when you're tired. Anybody could be nice and do chesed to people when you feel good. The trick is that when you have a headache or you got the flu, some people's attitude is, I have the flu, and if I'm suffering, everyone's going to suffer, right? Which is the feeling of most people. The trick is when you're suffering to not show everybody you're suffering. When you're suffering to be kind to people, then that's when you really grow. So when a person is having a down day, often that shows you where your area of work is. On a down day, I still daven. On a down day, I still put on tefillin. And on a down day, I learn. But on a down day, I growl at everybody in my family. Well, that shows me that on a down day, that's where my area of work is. That's where I really got to start improving. And therefore, the ladder of growth includes very much. It's very much a part of the growth process. Is the concept of having down days. And don't think you're the only one. Everybody goes through it at every level. Okay, go on to the next page. Yaakov Avinu wakes up, and Yaakov Avinu realizes this is a holy place. And then somebody just pointed out to me, if you take a look at Pasuk Tes Zayin, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso. Yaakov wakes up from his sleep. Top of page 146. Top line, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso. Yaakov awakens from his sleep. The word Vayikatz is related to the Hebrew word oketz, which is a thorn, or to get stung. When a bee stings, it's called an akitza. Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso, that means Yaakov wakes up with a start. As opposed to, how we wake up in the morning, with a snooze, you take it easy. Waking up is a process, just like going to sleep is a process, sometimes even a longer process. Vayikatz Yaakov is stung. He jumps up because he realizes that with this dream, he realizes he's sleeping in a holy place. Vayomer achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh. God is in this place. V'anochi lo yadati. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. Had I known that God was here, I wouldn't have gone to sleep. I didn't realize where I was sleeping. That's the plain meaning of the pasuk. Somebody just told me an interesting spin on this, that the pasuk could be read as Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnaso. He woke up from his sleep. Vayomer achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh. God's in this place. V'anochi, and myself lo yadati. I don't know myself in such a place. That means that in the presence of God, I don't exist. V'anochi lo yadati. I don't know myself in such a place. The attitude is that if you're in the presence of God, and we spoke about in the laws of Shemona Esrei, where we're supposed to feel that we're in front of a king and totally negate any sort of sense of ego or sense of self, that we are totally and completely and totally at the mercy of the king. Okay? Now, go down to the bottom of the page. Perek Chof Tes. Yaakov decides to continue his flight. He's off to Haran. And then in Pasuk Aleph, 3 lines from the bottom. Vayisa Yaakov Raglov Vayelech Artza B'nei Kedem. Yaakov picks up his feet and he goes off to the land of the east. Now, the commentaries see in this, just one pithy comment that they make. Yaakov picks up his feet. That means there are certain people in life who they carry their feet, and other people in life whose feet carry them. Yaakov carries his feet. That means Yaakov is moving with some sort of purpose and some sort of direction. Yaakov knows exactly where he wants to go, and he takes his feet there, as opposed to some people whose feet just happen to carry them. We had a guy here once, it was the day after, I think, Shivasar B'Tammuz. So we had a group here, completely secular guys came in for a few weeks. So the day after Shivasar B'Tammuz, the guys were learning about Yiddishkeit. They knew it was a fast day. So the day after Shivasar B'Tammuz, I went around the room. I said, Ricky, did you fast? He said, nah, I didn't feel like fasting. I said, Mike, did you fast? He says, yeah, I fasted. It was Gehenna. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but I made it through. I said, Tommy, did you fast? So Tom goes, well, I was going to, and I really started, and then I was walking downtown Yerushalayim, and I passed the falafel shop, and then Something happened, just like that. And I remember, and this was the perfect guy for it. This was a guy who was totally unconnected, and I just remember the way he said to me, well, something happened. Sure, something happened. If you walk past a falafel shop and you're starving hungry, something's going to happen. If you walk past a cemetery when you're starving hungry, then probably nothing's going to happen. So, instead of walking past a falafel shop, go past a plastic factory. But you say if your feet carry you. My brother told me, my brother was in Telstone. You ever been out to Telstone? A little place outside of Yerushalayim, about 20 minutes from Yerushalayim. So one night he's walking on the street. He sees a guy walking towards him with a suitcase. The guy says to him with a thick French accent, he says to him in Hebrew, excuse me, where's Eliyahu on Novi Street? So my brother says, there is no Eliyahu on Novi Street here. He goes, no, there is. My brother says, well, I've been living here for about 30 years. Telstone is a small little town. It's about the size of Daphne or Philadelphia or something like that. It's not very big. And so he says to him, well, I've been living here 30 years and there's no Eliyahu on Novi Street here. So the guy says, yeah, there is. They told me I have to go see my relatives on Eliyahu on Novi Street in Bnei Brak, and I want to know where it is. So my brother says to him, well, there is an Eliyahu on Novi Street in Bnei Brak, but you're in Telstone, you're not in Bnei Brak. So the guy says, what do you mean? He says, what do you mean, what do I mean? You're in Telstone. So it turned out that the guy had gotten into a cab. He was a French tourist. Got into a cab in Yerushalayim. Apparently he was an Arab cab driver. He told the Arab that he needs to get to Bnei Brak. The Arab picked up on him that he's absolutely clueless. So instead of driving him the hour to Bnei Brak, he dropped him off in Telstone. And he said, okay, we're in Bnei Brak. He even pointed to the building. He says, that's 107 Eliyahu Novi Street, right over there, that building. The guy got out. In the meantime, so my brother invited him up to the house to have something to drink till he could get himself in order. And it turned out that while he went to the back of the cab to get his suitcase, his jacket was draped over the front seat. The Arab helped himself to his wallet as well. So he was having a really bad day. And so they sent him on his way to Bnei Brak. But the lesson is, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know where you're going to get messed up in life. You better know where you're headed and what your direction is. So the first thing it tells us is Yaakov picks up his feet. His feet don't carry him. He carries his feet. There's no such thing as, well, let's just go, we'll see what happens. I know guys who have gone on hikes. Guys go on these road trips or hikes or this sort of thing. Where are you going to sleep? I don't know. We'll find a place. We go off hiking through the Judean desert. Where are you going to sleep? I don't know. We'll find a place to sleep. You want to make your arrangements beforehand so you don't need a helicopter rescue when you're stuck in a wadi somewhere. Make sure you know where you're going. Otherwise, you get into trouble. So Yaakov is a human being, he has direction, and therefore he picks up his feet and he carries his feet. Number one. Vayar, he takes a look. V'inei be'er ba'asada, there's a well in the field. V'inei shlosha edrei tzon rovtzim aleh, there are three, what are called, flocks of sheep who are crouching around it. Kimina be'erahu yashku adorim, that is the main well where the flocks are watered. Veha even gedola al pia be'er, there's a big stone covering the well, a giant stone. V'nesvu shama kol ha'adorim, all the flocks would gather. V'golalu es even al pia be'er, v'hishku es hatzon, they would roll off the stone. V'yeshivu es even al pia be'er, then they put the stone back in its place. So we started talking yesterday about what that indicates. Now he's going off to Lavan country. Remember, Lavan is this sneak and cheat and a swindler and everything else. And apparently the people of his place, the influence is spread. And it's spread to such an extent that nobody trusts anybody, and therefore we are not taking off the stone off the well till we're all there to take it off, and then we're putting it right back on so nobody comes and takes more than his fair share. And that seems to be the minhag hamakom. That seems to be the minhag of the place, that nobody trusts anybody else, which is very, very interesting because it's a Lebanonian influence. Vayomer lem Yaakov achai me'ayin atem. They said, Yaakov says, where are you from? Vayomer me'charan anachnu. We come from this place Charan, which is exactly where he's headed. Vayomer lam hayadatem es Lavan ben Nachor. Do you know Lavan, the son of Nachor? Vayomer yadanu. Yeah, we know him. Now, I read the pasuk differently. It's Vayomer lam hayadatem es Lavan. Do you know Lavan ben Nachor? Vayomer yadanu. We know him. Right, we know him. Yeah, we know him. And that's exactly why we're covering well over here with the stone. Yeah, we know him all right. Now, you'll notice, what's the name Lavan? White. What is white always a symbol of? Holiness, purity, right? White is a symbol of pureness. Isn't it interesting? The biggest swindler in the Torah, his name is White. His name is Whitey. right? Which is probably part of his charade. That to put on, and I would imagine that people saw him. We had a guy I told you there was a guy called the Teflon Don, right? John Gotti, who was the Teflon Don because his nickname was because it was Teflon, nothing stuck. They couldn't get him on anything. Lovin, I'm sure if you looked at the sheet, Lovin is clean as a whistle, right? He's clean as a whistle. You'd never be able to link him up to the Al Capone. It took him a long time to get the Al Capone until they finally got him on, what was it, income taxes or something, tax evasion. They got him on something, but you can't trace anything to him. A lot of people are dead, wearing cement shoes in the bottom of a river, and it's all Al Capone's doing. And you can name, you can try to find, do me something, until you can find him. So Lavan seems to be this guy who keeps himself clean. Now, the word white, Lavan, what does white tell you? What does the color white tell you?
Absent.
Absent. What's absent?
There's nothing.
There's nothing there. And the only difference between absence and non-absence is put on some black ink and you've got a contract, right? White, total white means that all possibilities are still open. And that's really a description of Lavan's life. Even after you put on the black ink, he's still got all possibilities open. That means he never keeps his word. He's white. Everything is open. Everything is at best a maybe. Everything at best a maybe. So you make an agreement with him. We'll see how he violates agreements one after the other. And it's at best. He's the prototype lawyer who's fighting over a comma. Exactly what the comma means. Lawyers sit down in the contract, they put in periods and commas, and they both got to look it over. And even afterwards, there's an argument. What exactly did it mean? That's who Lavan is, because Lavan represents total deception, and the white is a symbol of all possibilities remain open all the time. Even after we've agreed, all possibilities are still open. And therefore, it seems that they're not very enthusiastic. Now, Yaakov says, "Vayomer lema shalom, lo vayomer shalom b'nei Rachel bito vayomer." He says, "Yeah, here's Rachel, his daughter, is coming along with the flock." Vayomer hein oda yom gadol lo yisei sefer mikdash shkuat tzon l'churuu. Yaakov says to the Shalson, "Come, new man in town. What's the first thing he does? Gives them a musar shmooze. He says, hey, what are you coming in? You're being paid to work all day. Why are you standing around here? Go graze. What are you doing over here?" Yaakov sees a certain dishonesty over here. Now, this is, let's put this in the proper perspective. What did Yaakov just do? Who's he running away from? He's running away from an Esav. Why? Because he just swindled him out of a birthright. He just stole the bracha. And now he comes down and says, hey guys, a little honesty over here. So what does that tell you? What does it tell you about Yaakov himself?
He's like Lavan.
We'll see that he'll tell Rachel right away that I can match your father if he wants to play not fair. I could play not fair with him, and I even have an advantage. We'll see in a second. Very good, Sasha. We'll see in a second. But what does it tell you about Yaakov's view of his swindle?
He's not happy about it.
He's very happy about it. He doesn't see any. A guy who just robs a bank. A guy who robs a bank isn't going to come to somebody else and say, hey, you just switch. There's a famous story about a Jew's walking, and this bandit stops him. Jew's got a big pile of cash, and this bandit stops him. And he pulls out a gun, and he says, I'm going to hold you up, I'm going to take your money. He's out in the forest somewhere. So Jew says to the bandit, look, I got a problem. I'll give you the money, I just got a problem. The community gave me money, I'm supposed meant to be doing something with communal funds. If I tell them I got robbed, nobody's going to believe me, right? Nobody's going to believe me. So do me a favor, at least put a bullet hole in my coat. Just shoot a bullet hole through my coat so that I could tell the people, well, I got held up, here's a bullet hole. So the guy takes a shot. He says, can we make it look a little better? You want to put one over here too? So he shoots. He says he's got 6 holes. He says, can you put another one here? He says, sorry, I haven't got any more bullets. He says, really? Punches out the bandit, takes his money, starts heading the other direction. So the bandit starts chasing after him. You swindler, you cheat! A guy, most people in the world, you just swindled somebody. You're not going to see yourself as Mr. Musar now to go tell other people. That tells you that Yaakov understood what he did was that there was nothing wrong with what he did. He had to do what he did. I had to do that. That was a mitzvah. Now you guys, what are you doing over here? You're being paid by the day. You can't go take an hour lunch break where the boss said 20 minutes. You can't do that. By the way, that happens in offices all the time. People take all sorts of liberties, which according to halacha is not acceptable. So if you're being paid to work, you got to work, not read news on the computer, and then hit the button when the boss comes. and you're not supposed to be emailing your friends or doing whatever else you're doing if you're being paid by the hour. And if the boss gives you a break, you can't take liberties of, well, everybody does it, so it's a half hour, but I take 45 minutes. That means you're stealing because you're being paid to do a job a certain way. You also can't take liberties on helping yourself to office equipment, which sometimes people, I'll take a pencil home, take a pen home, take a stapler home, take a computer home, anything that's not tied down, you could take home. People do this in hotels as well. People go into hotels and you take a towel home. Take a towel from Holiday Inn. Well, they want me to take the towel. It's good advertisement for them. You ever hear that? Yeah, it's good advertisement. Who you're advertising for in your private shower at home? I don't know how many people are taking a shower in your house. Who exactly you're advertising for? I don't know. Take an ashtray, take a thing. TV came out of the wall. They want me to have it, obviously. So you can't. Any of these liberties, are just that. They're liberties, and you're not allowed to take those liberties. To help yourself to other things just because everybody else does it. And one of the things people help them to is their obedience. They take liberties with the job they're meant to be doing, and you're meant to be working a job properly the amount of time that you're expected to work the job. So Yaakov says to him, go out and graze. Vayomer lo nuchal, we can't. Ad asher yeyasu kol ha'adorim, until all the flocks gather. V'golalu eseven me'al pi ha'be'er. We're not loafing. We're waiting to water the flock, and we can't do it until everybody gathers. Vishkinu atzon. Odenu medabre imam, he was still talking, he was in the middle of talking, then Rachel boi matzon asher lavia kiroi. Rachel came along because she was a shepherdess. And we see in here, later on, we're going to see that Lavan has sons. It's the sons of Lavan at the end of the Parsha, who Yaakov gets nervous around Lavan's sons because they're talking bad about Yaakov, that he stole all the money. And the commentaries say, well, Lavan, when Yaakov arrived, did not have sons. He only had daughters. And it's only because Yaakov was there that he was blessed with sons. And Lavan himself realized that Yaakov was a source of blessing. Not that boys are better than girls, but boys are a blessing. So
so few sheep that one little girl could lose after
right, and Yaakov, that's right. And one girl comes out with the sheep. By the way, the Zachar, which is male, Zachar is male, is the same gematria as the word bracha. Zachar is 227, which is bracha. Which is male, which is 227 is the bracha. Now I show you while we're on the subject. I'll just show you. Skip ahead for a second. Take a look at page 158. The second line from the top. This is where Yaakov Avinu wants to start working for himself. He's been working for Lavan the whole time. And now Yaakov says, well, I'd like to start working and making my own money. So look what Lavan says to him in the second pasuk. Vayomer nakva scharcha olai ve'etena. Look at the translation. Specify your wage and I will give it. Now, what is the word nakva is the exact same letters as what Hebrew word? Nekeva, which is a female. The female. So it's interesting because later on in the Torah, when Bilam wants to curse the Jewish people, what does he say? Ma ekov lo kabo kel. How can I curse them if God hasn't cursed them? The word ekov is the exact same root as the word nekeva. Isn't that interesting? Now pay attention very carefully. We're on film. So you got to be politically correct here. Zachar is bracha. Nekeva comes from the root of curse. Okay? Now, doesn't mean that all wives curse out their husbands. It's not. You got it wrong. Sometimes, but not all the time. But that's not what it means. What it means is, what is the definition of bracha? And when I tell you the definition, you'll see that this is exactly suitable for why a zachar is bracha and a nekeva is related to curse. What does the bracha mean? You know, the word bracha is related to the Hebrew word brecha. You know what a brecha is?
Yeah, there was hot things.
A spring. They call it a swimming pool in modern Hebrew. Brecha is the hot thing. What?
Breakfast.
No, that's berekes. That's modern Hebrew. That's berekes. Berekes is actually. I believe berekes is a word rooted. I believe it's rooted in Arabic. It's like falafel. Those are not. What's that? Libyan, something like that. Yeah, it's an Arabic. It's an Arabic word. It's like falafel and hummus. You know, all that stuff. Those are all Middle Eastern dishes. Brecha Brecha is a spring. A spring is a place where there's a flow of water. Bracha, if you ask a guy, how's your business doing? He says, well, we were blessed this year. What does it mean?
Very good flow.
You had a good flow. What does it mean?
Good money.
Yeah, I made some bucks. That's what it means. You know, we were, it went higher and higher and higher. Bracha means spreading out. Bracha means that there's an overflow. Bracha means that there's an abundance. That's what bracha is. Even in modern Hebrew, where they talk about the religious families, the secular refer to, instead of calling them big families and overpopulated families, and their kindness, they call it mishpachot bruchot yeladim. Families blessed with children. That's what they call it. Mishpachot bruchot yeladim. Big frum families, the BFFs, they call them mishpachot bruchot yeladim. Blessing always means abundance, increase. That's the word I'm looking for. Nakva, when Lavan says to Yaakov, Nakva schorcha ve'etena, let's set a price. What is he doing really? Let's get a limitation over here. Let's get some sort of limitation. Let's set a price so that we all know what we're talking. Let's get into the box over here. That's what Nakva means. A curse means putting on a limitation. That's what a curse is. The difference between males and females, I mean, you guys are all males, and you come from long lines of males, so you should know that a male nature is always looking outward, more. And if you have a husband and wife, have a discussion. One of them has an idea to take all of the family savings and go for the big one. Invest it, so one of them's got an idea to invest it and go for the big one. And the other one says, no, let's just save and be cautious. Now, in most cases, who would you say is going for the big one, and who would you say is saying, let's be cautious?
Dude.
Usually the male wants to go for the big one, and the female takes away all the fun and says, let's be cautious. And what that is the definition of blessing. The male is looking for increase. Let's get out there. Let's do so. If a man works a job for 3 weeks, he holds down a job for 3. By the time he's done it for 3 weeks, he's looking for a new job. A woman can work the job years and years and years and years. In the relationship, what's a man doing? He's always looking over his shoulder. He's looking out, what's that one like? What's that one? What could have been? What would have been? What should have been? How much, there. He's always looking over his shoulder. What's a wife doing? Let's take it, let's develop it, let's nurture, let's communicate. Let's develop something over, let's nurture something, let's build something. Probably the best 2 weeks of my life. The best 2 weeks of my life when my older brother had his first kid. My mom left Chicago. She went to Israel to be with the new, to help out in the house over there. So it's just me, my dad, and my brother at the supper table. So when mom's home, of course, supper means communication. When dad's home, when mom's not home, it means a television, a newspaper, a Sports Illustrated. We're set. We're good to go. So I think for 2 weeks, the only thing anybody heard at the dinner table was, pass the meat. That was it, and that was a long conversation. The only thing other than that was, check what's on the football. What time are the football highlights? It was great. 10 minutes before she came home, everything gets put away. Scampering around like scared rabbits. Okay, let's communicate again. That's what she's into, building and nurturing. That's the difference between a male and female. There's nothing here there's nothing disparaging here. This is the nature of men and the nature of women. That's what the Torah is telling you over here. The nature of my mom. When Cal Ripken set the record for consecutive games. So, I broke Lou Gehrig's record. So my dad and I were talking about it. I mean, that's significant. That's important. So we were talking about it, and my mom said, what happened? So, we explained, some guy just set the consecutive game record. He's also a shortstop. He's not like a first baseman who's standing in one place. This was impressive. So my mom was a nurse. So my mom wasn't impressed. She said, big deal. So he went to work every day. I also go to work every day. So I said, yeah, but Mom, you don't understand. You're only a nurse. You save people's lives. He is a ball player. He made a contribution to society.
Wow.
That soothed her. You understand? So the what do you call it? The idea of consistency you find much more by women than you do by men. That's bracha. Bracha uncontrolled spells gematria disaster. I don't know if it's a gematria, but it should be. You know, bracha that is controlled means it's a controlled form of blessing. A curse has, in other words, neither one of them is an inherent good or inherent bad. Each one has a purpose. A curse, limitation, could be a very good thing. Sometimes you need limitation in life, because without limitation, we would hurt ourselves. And that's why you need the limitation. Most men, if they were not married, if they did not have their wife, most men would, at one point or other, I'm convinced of this. I mean, I haven't done statistical survey, I haven't done a study. Most men would, at one point or other, end up in prison if their wife didn't control them. I told somebody when I met my wife the first time, we were on shidduchim. So after we got engaged, she said, I asked her, we're talking about her first impression. She said, when she walked in, she met me. She said she liked me, but she saw there's a lot of work to be done. That's what she said, which is true. And don't worry, it's going to be true for you as well, right? Because there's going to be limitation. I know guys who are absolutely growing up, wilde chayas, out of control like you wouldn't believe. These are guys who prison would have been too good for them. They got married and, they're just tatalas now. Just everything is, they say please, thank you, all sorts of stuff that was never part of their minhag growing up. All these things. That's what the job of the wife is. That's the difference between bracha and curse. And it's not, again, it's very important to know there's nothing disparaging about it. It is the fact that is how they relate to the world. That's how men relate to the world. That's why they work together in unison. That's why the combination works. Okay, so Yaakov, back to where we were out. I know when I could have. Okay, so there's Yaakov in Pasuk Yud, page 148, Pasuk Yud. Vayihika shero Yaakov. Everybody see that? It's about 8 lines from the bottom. Vayihika shero Yaakov es Rachel bas Lovan achi imo. Yaakov sees Rachel. Now realize he's been on the road 14 years, the first relative he's seen in 14 years. He was in yeshiva for 14 years. Right? When he left the Yatlavzans, he hasn't seen a relative in 14 years. V'estzon Lavan achi imo, and he sees the sheep of Lavan. Vayigash, who's his uncle. Vayigash Yaakov v'yogel es-even me'al pi ha'be'er v'yashkes son Lavan achi imo. Now, we spoke yesterday about the concept of Yaakov having great strength. The kocho gadol, the strength, and we talked yesterday about it, was the strength of emunah, the Yaakov's belief that God's running the world. So it makes a difference how heavy the stone is. If you believe God gives you strength for anything, even little things, so the big thing makes no difference. We spoke about that yesterday. Part of the symbolism here is, the commentaries say 2 things. Water always represents what? What is synonymous with water? Torah. Torah is synonymous with water. Torah is synonymous with water. And Yaakov decides that, the water here, the well, water, Torah is the foundation of life. Water symbolizes Torah. The stone, do you know that the Gemara refers to the evil inclination? The Yetzer Hara is referred to as a stone. Im evenhu, if he is a stone, Torah cracks him. Your only battle against evil inclination is Torah. It's the only way to fight the Yetzer Hara is through Torah. Torah gives us the fuel, gives us the energy. There is no other way to control the Yetzer Hara other than Torah. The Yetzer Hara burns like a fire in a person. Ever sense that? Ever feel that? He's burning like a fire. Torah itself is fire. Torah is that white fire written on black fire that was given to mankind. It's the fire that counteracts the fire of the evil inclination. Not only that, the word Bereshis. Take a look at the beginning of the book for 1 second. Keep your finger on a place here. Look at the very first word in the big blue book. Take a look at the word Bereshis. Page 2. Look at the word Bereshis. Look at the first 2 letters. What do you have? Beis Reish. Look at the last 2 letters. Yud, Tuf, which spells what? Beis Reish Yud Tuf spells bris, a covenant. And look at the 2 middle letters. It's a covenant of fire. The Torah is a covenant of fire. The Torah is inherently fire. And the Torah is the only way to control the evil inclination. The stone is on the well, and Yaakov Avinu goes, and Yaakov Avinu says, hey guys, why don't you roll the stone off the well? And Yaakov Avinu goes and he does it. So symbolically, there are 2 ideas here. Idea number 1 is that when it comes to Torah, you have to do everything you can to fight that stone. Get that stone off the well. There's nothing that the Yetzer Hara wants to stop us from more than studying Torah, because that's the most potent mitzvah, it's the most important mitzvah, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. And the evil inclination wants to stop us from learning Torah, and he presents himself as a big stone. So the first thing is we have to always remember, roll the stone off the well, number one. Number two, what else? Isn't it interesting? Where does Eliezer meet Rivka?
At a well.
At a well. Where does Yaakov meet Rachel? Where does Moshe Rabbeinu meet Zipporah? At a well. There are 3 times in Torah that we find husbands meeting wives, and it's always at the well. What does the well represent? Water, which is the source of life. What's the wife? She's the source of life. That's where the babies come from. And therefore the well represents the source of life, which is the wife. The stone on the well represents the barrenness that Rachel is going to go through. Can't get to the water. Remember, Rachel is going to be barren. And Yaakov Avinu, removing it from the well, is symbolic of how he will remove her barrenness through his tefillah, through his prayer. But the well, the stone on the well, represents the fact that Rachel is going to be barren. That's what the commentaries say. Now, the next pasuk everybody has trouble with, and you really shouldn't. But everybody wonders, is curious about this. The next pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayishak Yaakov l'Rachel. Yaakov kisses Rachel. Vayisa es kolo vayef. And then he raises his voice and he starts crying. So Rashi says he's crying because he sees prophetically that she is not going to enter burial with him. Rachel is not buried in the Moras HaMachpelah. Okay? So everybody asks, how could Yaakov kiss Rachel? Oy, what a question. What a bomb question. So the most basic answer is that the Medrash says there are different types of kisses. There is one kiss which is a kiss of family kiss, where you see a family member. She is his family member, and Yaakov gives her a kiss as a greeting, as hello. There's a kiss of lust. This is not a kiss of lust, number one. Number two, a little boy said in a certain, remember, he hasn't seen a family member in 14 years. And he's just happy to see somebody. Now, the commentaries do not discuss this a lot, like, oh my goodness, what an Aveira. When they talk about Yaakov Aveira's sin in marrying 2 sisters, that there's a lot of discussion on. Nobody discusses over here, my goodness, how could he do such a thing? So apparently it's not a big deal. But doesn't mean we could do it. We can't. But a little boy said, very interesting thing in a class once. Somebody said, this came up in class. And the little boy said, well, Rachel was so holy. If you see a Sefer Torah coming past, what do? You kiss the Sefer Torah. Yaakov saw a Sefer Torah, saw a living Sefer Torah, so he gave it a kiss. Okay, that's very dangerous, because then guys are like, hey, well, I got a few Sefer Torahs now. Here's the number of my Sefer Torah. So I'm just telling you what he said. It's a very, very clever thing for a little boy to say. Bottom line is that Yaakov cries, and then Yaakov tells her father the following: Vayaged Yaakov l'Rachel ki achi aviyahu. Yaakov tells Rachel that he is her father's brother, meaning a relative. And Rashi says he's telling her, I'm your father's colleague. I'm a peer. That means if your father wants to play dirty, I can play dirty too. He's telling her right away, don't worry about me being a frummy who came out of yeshiva. If it gets to the point where he's going to start being deceitful and playing dirty, I'm his peer. I know how to play dirty too. And then he says to her, Vichi ben Rivkahu, and I'm the son of Rivka. So the commentaries say not only he's telling her, not only I know how to play the game, I've got an advantage. I've got an advantage over your father. Because your father, everybody knows, is a no-goodnik. Everybody knows your father's a swindler. Your father knows me as the goody-goody son of his goody-goody sister Rivka. So your father's gonna think, well, he's gonna wrap me around his finger, and like he did it, well, how could, this guy's, the frummy, the son of the frumette, she was always the family goody over there, he's fair game, fair hunting, and he's telling Rachel, don't worry, I can play the game too, and now that I got an advantage, because he thinks he's got me in his sights, and he doesn't know who I really am. And in the end, we're gonna see that Lavan gets him anyway. V'taratz v'taged le'aviyah. She runs and tells her father. So Vahiki Shma Lavan Shema Yaakov ben Acho. So when Lavan hears the name of Yaakov, his nephew, Vayaratz likra, so he goes to hug him, Vayichabek lo vayinashek lo, he hugs him and he kisses him, Vayiveo beso. Now, why is Lavan running out to greet this guest? Yeah, the last time a guest came from home, who was it? Last time it was the servant with 10 camels and all sorts of good things. Well, here comes the son. We can make a song out of it, but here comes the son, and he'll what do you call it? And he'll he must have all these riches. And then Vayesaper Lilovan is called Dvarim Elu. He says to him, listen, little darling, there's a reason I don't have any riches over here, and it's because Lavan took him away from Esav took him away from me. The Medrash says that Esav sent his son Eliphaz. He sent him after Yaakov. And Eliphaz caught up to Yaakov. He says, hey, my pa said I got to kill you. So Yaakov said to him, well, I prefer not. And Eliphaz grew up in Yitzchak's home, and he didn't really want to kill Yaakov. So Yaakov convinced him not to kill him. Eliphaz says, yeah, but what am I doing about my father's command? He's very, very righteous, Eliphaz. I mean, my dad said, I got to honor my father and kill you. There's some sort of distorted righteousness which comes from Esav. He says, what about my father's command? He says, this, take my money. The Gemara says, a poor man is as good as dead. So you can tell your father, you killed me, you took all my money. So it won't be a lie, and he left me that, and he takes the money, and he leaves him penniless. So Yaakov shows up penniless, and Lavan is disappointed that after patting Yaakov down, first he looks at him, no camels. Then he starts patting him down, a hug. Where is he hiding the jewels? Nothing there. So Lavan's a little disappointed that Yaakov comes in. Okay, so we'll continue with this tomorrow. Mir Hashem, exactly. I'll play the end.